Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the 905 Roundup with me, Roland Tanner.
I am Joel McLeod.
And a couple of pretty big stories. Well, one very much in our wheelhouse, which is Hamilton's vote last Friday, I believe, on the very late at night as well, on the urban boundary expansion issue. And well, it's depending on your view and who you're employed by, good news or terrible news, I guess. But Joel, give us the update on what went down.
Well, not the urban boundary. It was voted down, I should say, by city council, which I think took some people by surprise. I think there was an undercurrent of council was going to let this one go through, and it was voted down. Very surprising, but I think very welcome by a good deal of Hamiltonians. I know that the Stop the Sprawl Ham ONT people must be ecstatic, whom we had on a few weeks ago to discuss their side. But it was defeated, which was very interesting. Is how the vote was broken down. Essentially, of the city council, only 3 councillors voted in favor of the expansion, and those were Lloyd Ferguson, Mary Pearson, and Terry Whitehead. And it should be noted that Terry Whitehead, who had voted for the expansion, was saying that this is he thought it was going to have a detrimental effect on the housing market and leave our children in unaffordable housing conditions for generations to come, which is, I think a bit of a simplification of the problem on his part.
Yeah, I mean it's I mean, every time anybody objects to anything being built, the argument that comes back the other way is, well, our children are going to have to pay through. It's like, but yeah, somewhere there's a line where what is built and what our children's houses are going to cost stop being just, one stops justifying the other at every single turn. And it's just, I mean, I think it's interesting. Well, let's start off with the good stuff. Yeah, I think Hamilton Council did the right thing. Good for Hamilton Council. It's interesting to ask, are the councillors picking up on the kind of vibe that is out there? The winds of change, so to speak, and appreciating that they maybe need to pay a little bit more close attention now. And the Stop Sprawl people and the city itself, in terms of holding a very large survey, far larger than cities usually carry out for anything, on the expansion issue, which came back with an overwhelming and resounding no. I mean, I think the messages were pretty clear from people in Hamilton that they did not want this. So maybe well, even these councillors couldn't really go against that tide.
Not only that, but this is a sneak peek in terms of episodes ahead for the 905 or so. Hit that subscribe button, but. We're going to speak with in an upcoming episode with Graham Crawford is going to be coming back onto the podcast from I Elect Hamilton. And one of the things that we do ask him is what is with the grassroots mobilization in Hamilton? There seems to be this an energy of people who just say, no, the status quo doesn't work for us anymore. We need to move forward in terms of development. And Stop Sprawl Ham ONT is definitely one of those factors. Clearly, they're influential. I thought one of the things that really, it was a small thing, but it was a huge thing in terms of changing the course of the dialogue that was happening on this matter, was when they released that map of all the possible sites in Hamilton that could be repurposed or rebuilt, or just, quite frankly, vacant lots that could be built into condo towers or housing units or businesses or whatever. It was just the Swiss cheese map of Hamilton. They said, this is what we should be focusing on. Let's build here. Let's complete the city before we even think about having to tear up this strip of farmland that surrounds us. I personally, I mean, this came in light of $1 million PR firms trying to persuade the argument, and they lost big time on this.
Well, and there was a guy tweeting, and he came from one of the... sorry, I got some feedback in my headphones. There was a guy tweeting, and he was a representative of one of the lobbying groups for the development industry, and I can't remember which one. Doesn't really matter which one. And he was tweeting early on Friday saying, you know, councillors have to stand up for these NIMBYs who don't want urban expansion. And it's like, good Lord, this is the opposite of NIMBY. I mean, I hate that word anyway. But this is people saying, no, we don't want you to build on the edge of town, far away from where I live. We want you to build downtown.
In my backyard.
In my backyard. Yeah. And I mean, it really is. And I think it's, we were just talking about, before we came on, about, it was an interesting article by Devon Roundcliffe in the, Looney Politics website, about kind of the role of the 905 in elections. And it's kind of, well, I'd say disproportionate. It's not actually disproportionate. It's probably exactly proportionate to the number of people who live here. And the kind of, you know, SUV nation, that's not a phrase he used, but it's one I use, that kind of, you know, where we're all obsessed by our cars and by our big, comfortable minibuses and SUVs. But then it's just true. I mean, I think that's very much the perception of the 905. And it's like, but then it's like, well, in the last few weeks, we've seen massive opposition to Highway 413. You know, what seems clear is there's no great call for the Highway 413 or the Bradford bypass. No one's really calling for it. A lot of people are, you know, and there may be the vast majority of people may not care either way, but they're not calling for it. This is not a vote winner, other than with the development industry. There's a lot of people saying, we don't want this, it's not necessary. And we're seeing the same in Hamilton, where, you know, traditionally it's like, well, like, yeah, we need our semi-detached, we need our detached homes and our double garages, and we need, you know, we need to be able to drive to the mall, and we need to do all these things. That's not what the people who are involved in local politics in the 905 are saying anymore. It's just, that's not the direction that it seems to me that things are really going.
Well, part of that, like what we've talked about this many times on this podcast, is that we're growing out of that suburban commuter mindset, and that's something that I'm hoping is going to start changing in terms of our political leadership, recognizing that. You know, the involvement in changing the rules surrounding how cities develop, how cities grow, and how cities meet the challenges of affordable housing, of, you know, that 15-minute city idea. That is something that has to be, I think, brought down into a local level. The simple fact is that too often we're stuck with this binary notion of, oh, we just have to keep build another highway, build another subdivision, and our problems will be solved. And here's the thing: I don't think it clearly won't. We need a little bit more innovation, a little bit more creative thinking, which is what, ironically, you go to the people and say, well, how do we repurpose land? How do we redevelop this into useful condo buildings, livable spaces, and put those on the market and help moderate costs and whatnot? And then, again, I go back to the Stop the Sprawl Ham ONT people who put forward I thought it was an ingenious way of saying, we're not just saying don't build here. It's, you're not finished building the city yet. When you're finished building this, I think their argument was pretty much, when you're finished building the city, then we can talk about expanding out. But you're not finished yet. This is just easy money for the developer, because it is easy. You know, just dig a hole, build a house, move on.
And Hamilton's obviously a city that has had long-standing problems with its downtown. And I don't think I'm saying anything that isn't well known there. And why on earth would you want to focus development and income on green fields when downtown is crying out for investment? Which is in development is ultimately investment, and it's new people to live there, people coming out to Toronto because looking for more affordable housing or whatever. And it's this thing about, well, if you don't build it here, then our children aren't going to afford things. Our children aren't going to be buying detached homes on the edge of Hamilton anyway. They would be highly expensive houses, I'm willing to bet.
Here's a question: Do you think that this was a play by many city councilors to try and jump on the bandwagon, so to speak? I mean, we talked like the winds of change are blowing through Hamilton. You had Stop Sprawl Ham ONT organizing very well. I Elect Hamilton is turning into a force to be reckoned with in terms of the municipal scene here in Hamilton. Do you think it's a matter of councillors who are seeing these winds of change and saying, well, I want to get on the good side, get some kudos in my bonnet, so to speak, so come election time?
Yeah, I think if the vote had gone the other way, I think it's interesting where the people who did vote the other way came from. They were all councillors who live on the edge. They're suburban councillors. I'm not going to make any guess as to why they might favour development more, but I mean, there's all kinds of reasons. But I also think, a massive survey held by the city with very large numbers of respondents, overwhelmingly pointing in one direction. If they had voted in favour of urban expansion, then every person running for council next year would be knocking on the door saying, look what they did, they're wrecking the city. It would be, so yeah, they've done the thing that makes sense. Here's the other thing I don't know, and I asked this question on Twitter, and I don't know if anyone knows the answer. Maybe I should go and look at the Municipal Act and work it out for myself, or the Planning Act. Is this decision appealable at LPAT? Because if it is, it will be. The Ontario Land Tribunal. So many things are appealable at LPAT. This could be. The minister has already made his preferences clear. And I could well also be subject to an MZO. I don't know. I mean, I think anything is pretty much subject to an MZO at the end of the day.
But here's the thing: the MZOs come in only in politically expedient circumstances from this provincial government. They're not implemented in some kind of surgical style to, we're going to reshape the landscape of Ontario for maximum transportation efficiency or whatnot. It is very much clearly they're political tools by the existing government. Here's the thing: in Hamilton, there are no PC votes. There have not been PC votes at the provincial level in Hamilton. I don't know if there's a political scientist or political historian on there, maybe they'll know, but not in my lifetime, and I don't see that changing in the next election.
Yeah, I mean, Dundas is the one holdout, the one exception to that. But that's a long-standing Liberal seat until Donna Skelly took it in 2018. It's not happy hunting ground for them, for sure. But that to some extent makes the political fallout of doing something unpopular much smaller.
I'm going to be curious to see if they keep it up. If it is, because I think right now the worst thing they can do is this turns into be a feather in the cap that they can hold up at election time. I stopped the urban boundary, but they dropped the ball on things like Sewergate. Any other kind of proposals that come down the line between now and election day. I think the message that any politician in the 905, especially this end of the 905, and I think this goes beyond Hamilton in scope. Any politician at any level, you've got to listen to the people, because the people can organize, and if they are angry enough and mobilized enough, they can be a force to be reckoned with, as they should be in a democracy. So, I'm going to say kudos to the Stop Sprawl Ham ONT people for a well-run, well-organized campaign on their end. I think they definitely drove the message home. They got the solution that they wanted. Just kudos to them. It's impressive to see, a victory for the little guy, so to speak.
Yeah, and it goes against let's make it clear that the City Hall staff recommended in favor of expansion, which is troubling, and then proposed a revised kind of small expansion as their second recommendation when it became clear that the full expansion wasn't going to fly, and they both got voted down. And I think that's a really important moment for the whole 905, not just Hamilton. And well done for the public, because if no one was paying attention, as happens so often with major decisions in our municipalities, this almost certainly would have gone a different way. Mm-hmm. Almost certainly. Well, let's take a break there, and then we'll come back and look at what else is happening. Welcome back. And, this is not a local issue, but is a local issue, I think. And that's the what's happening out in BC right now, where amidst floods and the province being cut off from the rest of Canada, we have the RCMP seemingly acting pretty aggressively, shall we say, with regard to the Wet'suwet'en protesters out there.
I think what's interesting is that it's we're shaping up to. Well, I'm jumping ahead of myself. What I thought was interesting is the connection, the seeming connection that it had to the 905 and to what's happening at 1492 Landback Lane here in Caledonia, in our backyard. And that was one of the organizers at 1492 Landback Lane, the leader, if you will, Skylar Williams. I went out to the Wet'suwet'en protest their land to show solidarity, and in the process of, while he was out there, the RCMP invoked this coastal gas line injunction and went in and arrested him along with another number of other land defenders there, including a number of journalists and impartial people. Just kind of this mass arrest, which sparked a response here in the 905 in Hamilton. There was on the weekend there was a massive shutdown of Bay Street by land defenders here and some representatives from 1492 Landback Lane to come out here to show solidarity. And I thought that was interesting because of the similarities. If you remember back last year, at the last kerfuffle on the Wet'suwet'en land by the RCMP, there were railway blockades all across the country. And again, the economy was almost brought to a standstill when goods weren't able to travel to market. And I thought that was what happened in Hamilton. I think definitely showed signs of kind of a mirror of that. And we could be looking at, again, another Canada-wide series of protests.
Well, and while this is a BC provincial issue in some ways, anything to do with First Nations is a national issue, kind of as of right, if you like. We've just come through an election where the Prime Minister promised all kinds of warm words about reconciliation. Since that election, the federal government has once again been told by the courts that it needs to pay up on the Jordan's principle issue, which is the, for those who may have forgotten, the issue of whether when Ontario or when a province and when the federal government can't agree on who should be paying healthcare, that someone should damn well pay it anyway. And now this has been rolling on for the whole time that, well, I'm sure from before the Liberals came into government, but they have shown themselves these warm words that come from the Prime Minister. You can't get away with it anymore. Can't even get away with it with someone like me, who is, from a background prior to starting to do this, it was an activist for the damn party. It's like, no, this is terrible.
What strikes me,
you can't carry on. They've lost so many court cases in this Jordan's principal issue. They've lost count, and every time they go, well, we're going to appeal it, whatever. It's symbolic, In this case, the Prime Minister needs to start getting involved in these issues, because God damn, it needs some leadership, and it's not good enough. This is unceded territory, so that means what unceded means is that there's no deal was ever done. So by whose right can we say it's Canada's to do with as it wishes? By whose right are the police there defending the interests of a private company?
What gets me about all this is, coming back to the federal government, this is, you're right. What happened out west on the Wet'suwet'en land was, this was the federal government should have been focusing on, okay, how do we rebuild the highway connecting the Port of Vancouver to the rest of Canada? How do we fix that? And instead, you have the RCMP saying, oh, well, we're going to go and do what we do best, which is kick ass and take names. Kick heads and take names, I guess, might be the better term. What gets me is that it's the repeating of history here. Is that the last time the RCMP did this, it led to nationwide protests by First Nations people who sympathize and who are siding with the Wet'suwet'en people, as is their right. If you're going for this nation-to-nation relationship, which apparently the Prime Minister wants to invoke, the various First Nations of this land have the right to say, well, we side with them. We side with the Wet'suwet'en people. I'll be honest, the whole thing is just this cycle of ridiculousness on the part of the federal government. Like, at some point, you have to step in and say, okay, it's a system that we're trying to use to fix these wrongs, these generational wrongs. Is that a problem? If that's the case, then maybe you need to show some leadership and say, we need a new system. Because, my bet is, they're going through the courts because, use the courts. That's what they're there for. No, the courts were there to keep denying First Nations their rights. It's there to muck up the system, to wear them down financially, to wear them down generationally, because these things take forever. I mean, we're still working on land claims from the 1800s in the court systems. These things, the system is meant to wear down the people. It may not work. And I think we're 8 years of just Prime Minister Trudeau. At some point, man, you have to look at the facts, say this isn't working, and show.
And it's this thing of Trudeau, standing on a podium and coming out with warm words and we're gonna be different. We care about Indigenous issues. We're gonna have a whole holiday and everything. And I may go off and do some surfing, but whatever. It's a holiday. It's not good enough. It's not good enough anymore. And I think it's incumbent on all of we Canadians who are not First Nations, who are who came here, whether 200 years ago or last year, to say this is not good enough anymore. And it's part and parcel with the environmental challenge. This is an oil pipeline. We're dealing with it's all connected because we're dealing with stopping sprawl in Hamilton. With and again, ultimately the Caledonia issue was about sprawl. Yeah. And about development, if you think outside the Greenbelt, if you think about it, as much as anything else,
the 1492 Landback Lane situation pretty much mirrors what's happening out west. It's the same it's the exact same principle. It's their land. They say, we don't want to use it this way. We do not want to sell it to you. We don't want to develop it this way. This is our land. To me, in my mind, I'm just a simple guy with a podcast. But to me, it's no different than I own my land, my house, my property, and it's, you know, if somebody wants to come in and use my backyard to lay a pipeline, I don't care if they've already built, you know, so many thousands of kilometers. The minute it gets to my line, my yard, I'm saying no. I'm not selling, and not for that price. You can count. You can ignore me or whatnot, but it's my land. I don't want to sell to you, and I'm sorry, but that's the problem. Is that's one of the reasons why we got to get off the. And this is maybe getting off topic a bit, but we got to get off the pipeline binge in the West. This is simply why is that eventually you can build. You can have people say, yeah, I'll sell you the land. I'll give you the rights. I'll lease the land, whatever. Da, da, da. Eventually you'll get to somebody who just says, nope. And I don't care about all those other people. And I don't care about how much money to be made in it. I just don't want to sell my land. And here's the thing. They are 110% in their right to do so. It is their land. It is they're free to do with it what they want. They can sell it or they cannot sell it. And unfortunately, sometimes that screws up everybody else's plans. But we have to face facts that that's what's happening here. And if the era of pipelines just has to end. And I don't care if Coastal GasLink has so many billions of dollars invested in this project so far and they want to build it. It was a bad investment, maybe, because you didn't sit down, you didn't talk to the Wet'suwet'en people, same as the development in Caledonia. You didn't sit down, you didn't talk to the Six Nations properly to get an agreement. And this is what happens.
Well, and the First Nations are obviously, you know, have a different view of you know, a spiritual connection with the earth and with the lands associated with. Now, I mean, all of this means nothing in the context of Canadian European law, but it's also a fact, and it's a fact that there is more sympathy with, I think, from many Canadians than there may have been in the past. That we need to treat these lands with respect, and you just don't dig them up willy-nilly. And I mean, I suspect, I mean, the problem is with unceded land is that there is no established ownership other than then it was never ceded, which doesn't mean that lots of other people haven't just claimed it at various points. I mean, this entire continent was taken by force, by duplicity, or by actual agreement, you know. And it's that nation-to-nation thing again. The Prime Minister has to be involved. The government needs to be involved. They need to sit down with the various First Nations on a territory-by-territory basis. Look at these ones, solve these issues, come to agreements about how disputes can be handled, about what can and can't be done, about, you know, if land is unceded, then it's unceded, man. You know, I mean, I think how Canadian law operates is like, well, it's unceded, so no one owns it. So we can do what the hell we like with it because the crown is the crown, and the crown, if no one else has it, it belongs to the crown, right? I mean, I'm talking, I don't know enough about the specifics to know if I'm talking accurately or not, but that's how the law we inherited from Britain operates, that ultimately everything belongs to the crown, and everything, you know, unless it's been given by the crown to someone else, which is just so completely alien to the reality on the ground of the people who lived here long before
here's
Europeans
where
came.
That's the crux of it, is that we have the colonial system coming in, trying to impose its will on the hereditary nature of the First Nations. What gets me is, like, where do we go from here? It's very clear. You it's a case like you pick on one, you pick on them all. And by them, I do mean like the First Nations people. Like there's a solidarity that's being shown here in our backyard in the 905 for what's happening out west. It's one of these things like the powers that be have got to get this through their heads that times are changing, and there are people who are just not going to back down on this fight. It's just not going to happen, no matter what you say or do. The courts are. I don't know. I mean, we're right back where we started. How long until we have railway fires happening again?
Well, yeah, I mean, this has gone on for decades, I guess. So, I mean, to an extent, this is, from the government's point of view, this is a price of doing business with the First Nations, and they've always managed to just get away with it by wearing them down and being the ones who still got the police when everybody else gets, tired. But I think maybe the most important difference is with the residential schools coming fully into the light of everybody, and pretty darn widespread sympathy for the First Nations and Indigenous people, the effects that's had. I don't think this is something that most people are just brushing under the carpet anymore. That also means that people like you and me are not going to accept other things that we might have turned a blind eye to or just thought, someone else's problem in the past. Like, no, that we need a new deal for First Nations and Indigenous people in Canada, which supersedes the Indian Act in whatever way. I mean, I'm not, and that's not for us to judge what goes into that. That's for nation to nation conversations between Canada and the First Nations. So who knows what should be in that, but it needs to happen, and it needs the Prime Minister to take a damn lead for once in his life and show real courage on that issue. And if he did do that, then maybe he'd be worthy of a few more years in government, because that alone would give him some kind of guarantee of a place in the history books. If he doesn't, that's the thing that people remember is like, here's another damn Prime Minister who just couldn't care enough to actually try and deal with it. And to be honest, the warm words make me sick at this point. They really do.
I think we should leave it at that, because that's a good note to end the episode on. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode. Take care. That's it for this episode of the 905er. Thank you for listening. As always, you can send us your feedback, thoughts, and concerns or ideas for future episodes to our email, info@905er.ca. We'd love to hear from you. You can help us keep the 905er going by financially supporting us through Patreon as well as PayPal. Visit us at 905er.ca and click on the support tab. As well, links are in the show notes for your convenience. Lastly, you can find us on social media. Search for _905er on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So long for now. See you next time.
Looking to make the most out of this life and optimize your personal wellness? Then check out the Natural Man Podcast. Join me, host Mike C., as we explore all areas of human wellness, physical, mental, and emotional. Learn strategies to optimize your own well-being and be in the driver's seat of your own health. Remember, your doctor works for you. Learn biohacks, neurohacks, ways to improve sleep, and ways to optimize your body and your mind. Check us out on Apple, Spotify, the Fountain app, and at naturalmanpodcast.com.